So, how do you even begin to decarbonize an industry that moves 90% of, well, everything you buy? This isn't just some abstract question for engineers. It's one of the great puzzles of our time, and it touches pretty much everything in your life. Yeah, we're not talking about some far off industry issue here. The thousands of ships out on the ocean are literally the backbone of our global economy. They carry everything from the phone in your hand to the food on your table. Their emissions are quite literally our emissions. Knut Aurebach Nilsson from DNV Maritime put it perfectly. He said it's like a complex jigsaw puzzle. You've got thousands of pieces scattered all over the place, and we're just now starting to find the edges to build the frame. So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to try and piece this whole thing together. All right, so let's get into it. Let's lay out the pieces of this great big puzzle, starting with the most important ones. So when you start any puzzle, where do you begin? The corners, right? Of course. They're the big, obvious pieces that anchor everything else. Well, for shipping, those corner pieces are the carbon-neutral fuels of the future. And we're talking about some really futuristic stuff here. Green methanol, green ammonia, advanced biofuels, synthetic LNG, and hydrogen. You get the idea. These are the end game, the ultimate long-term solutions that will one day power a truly zero-emission global fleet. Okay, but here's the catch, and it is a huge catch. By 2030, the projected supply of all these amazing green fuels, well, it's only going to meet about 3% of shipping's demand. Look at that chart, a staggering 97% supply gap. Let that sink in. The corner pieces of our puzzle, they're just not on the table yet, not even close. And it's not just about not having enough fuel. You've got to remember, over 90% of the ships out there today still run on the old stuff. Ship owners are looking at this thinking, do I really want to bet billions on a technology that might be a dead end? That's a huge risk, creating what the industry calls stranded assets. Okay, so if the corner pieces are missing, what do? You don't just give up on the puzzle, right? No. You start building the frame. You work with the edge pieces, the stuff you actually have right in front of you. All right, I'm going to throw a number at you. 16%. What could that possibly mean? In an industry this massive, what is 16%? Well, that 16%, that's the emissions reduction the entire global fleet could achieve right now. Not in 2040 or 2050, but today. How? Just by using the energy efficiency tech that already exists. This right here is the framework for our puzzle. And just to give you a sense of how big of a deal 16% really is, think about this. A 16% cut across the board is the same as taking the 2,500 biggest ships on the planet and making them completely zero emission. Overnight. It's not a small change. It's a monumental win, and it's totally achievable. And look, this isn't just about saving the planet. It's about saving a whole lot of money. Right now, a 20% efficiency boost can save about 60 grand on a single voyage. Not bad, right? But now look at the future. When we switch to those new, way more expensive fuels like green methanol, that exact same 20% efficiency gain saves you $300,000. The message here is crystal clear. Being efficient is smart business today, but it's going to be absolutely critical for survival tomorrow. Okay, so we've got our framework. Now let's open up the toolbox and look at the actual pieces we can start putting into place. First up, we've got something that's kind of old school, but made new again, wind power. But hey, these are not the pirate sails you're thinking of. We're talking about high-tech, automated systems that can slash fuel use by anywhere from 5 to a whopping 40%, depending on the route. Next, we get into some of the more subtle stuff, but it's just as important. Think about advanced coatings for the hull that are super slick, or designs that just cut through the water better. All of this is about reducing drag, and it can save a solid 2 to 8% in fuel. And then you get to the really cool, almost science fiction innovations. Get this, air lubrication. It literally creates a carpet of tiny bubbles under the ship's hull. Why? To cut down on friction with the water. It sounds wild, but it works, and it can reduce fuel use by up to 8%. And, the list just keeps going. There are so many other pieces to this puzzle. We're talking about things like systems that recapture waste heat from the engine, software that finds the smartest route to avoid bad weather, and even just keeping the hull and propeller super clean. Every single one of these pieces adds up to a bigger, more efficient picture. But of course, just having all the pieces isn't enough, right? You need a strategy to actually put them all together. So let's talk about the final picture and the last few hurdles we need to clear. And maybe the biggest hurdle isn't technological at all, it's economic.
It's this thing called the split incentive. Here's how it works, and it's pretty simple. The person who owns the ship has to pay for all these cool, expensive upgrades. But the person who's renting the ship, the charterer, is the one who pays the fuel bill. So the charterer gets all the savings. You can see how that doesn't give the owner much motivation to spend the money, right?
So, how do you fix a problem like that? Well, you need a solid strategic plan. And the DNV report lays out a really clear 3-step approach for any shipping company. First, figure out your goals for cutting emissions. Second, look at all the different ways you could actually reach those goals. And third, put it all together into a real, concrete plan for your entire fleet.
And what's the glue that holds this whole plan together? It really comes down to one word: trust. Trust that's built on solid, transparent, and verified data. I mean, if you can prove that your technology saves a specific amount of fuel, then suddenly everyone, the owner, the charterer, the banks, they all have the confidence they need to make the investment and get past that split incentive problem.
So, that brings us right back to the beginning. We've seen that the ultimate solution, those green fuels, well, they're still a ways off. But we have this incredibly powerful framework we can build right now using energy efficiency. All the pieces are on the table. The business case is stronger than ever. The path forward is actually pretty clear. So the only question left is, are we ready to finally solve shipping's great puzzle?